All right, there should be song now. There should be song now, right? Testing, testing, testing. Right. Okay. All right. There should be song now. I think everybody should be hearing me now. All right. Let me just share this from the TrinFx. TrinFx. Testing, testing. All right. Should be song now. All right. Okay. All right. We back. We back in it. Sorry, like I said, guys, I'm using my phone to actually stream the give you the view of myself. So I'm not seeing my messages or anything like that. I really thought like the microphone was on, but apparently it wasn't. So that's a okay. We starting from the top. All right. Um. Yeah. So what I was discussing, right? Basically, what I'm looking at right now and what we have coming up is the FOMC Fed conference, right? We have the press conference coming up, as well as interest rate decision, right? So we did have a couple of trades that we took before, such as here on the 80 card, and this is just some of the trades that we took within the VIP, right? So we have this, the 80 card trade that was taken initially before ADP was expecting that move to the downside, which did actually play out. We came out somewhere around 2.5%, around that area right there, as well as GBP JPY, right? This was just a lovely trade continuation from the top here, right? Did enter right around this area here, and if you actually take a look into the, sorry, if you actually take a look into the VIP, we can see that, right? We did actually enter right around that area where price started rejecting. That was the supportive zone that price came into, and we were looking for that continuation, right? So once price did come into that zone, and it's just to get you like some technical analysis, what I see on the charts when I'm looking at the trades and whatnot, right? So once price did come into that zone where we pushed back and we came back up, right? Overall, we do have this bearish sentiment against the pound, right? So if price was to make a continuation, then I'd like to see some sort of bearishness, some sort of bearish push correcting that movement upwards right there on this pullback, right? Because overall, if we look at the 4 hour, we could see that the previous candle was a strong bearish candle pushing out of this zone. This was the pullback right here on this bullish 4 hour candle, and right at around the formation of this candle right here, right? If we was going to continue higher, then price will just continue pushing up, right? However, if we was to continue lower, if prices continue with the overall bearish momentum that we will see at the point of time, then we'll actually clear that level of that supportive zone and see that continuation happen, which is what we saw happening around that time. Yeah, if price just reach into that zone, then there's a higher probability to see that bearishness continue, and that's why I entered this trade. I took the initial setup of this trade and looked to enter it, and you can see that lined up with well sent here, right? So entered it during the London session time, sometime early in the morning, and was looking for that continuation play as price formed up here, right? So once we saw that rejection, that was basically giving me the signal to see that continuation lower, especially when we don't have any influence from the New York session. It really gives it more of a higher probability to actually play out in your direction, just because you don't have those opposing sort of trades against you, right? You don't have that volatility basically influencing, price just wicking back and forth, anything like that, right? So that was one of the reasons why I took this trade. The 80 card was the same thing. Overall, I am expecting that interest rates from the Fed to actually bolster the card and basically just give that risk off sentiment tone. So AD and the NCD, the risk on currency assets, would be looking to actually fade away. So that's my take on this. What I'm looking for to see mostly a continuation to the downside. I am still in this trade. Though I did say, come out here at the 2.5%. I am still in this trade, looking to see that play out. If we could actually get a bearish candle close here, then I'll hold this trade even longer until that FOMC that news event, right? So this is something that I'm looking to see potentially happen. Uh, yeah. So everybody's hearing me clearly, right? There's no issue or anything like that. I'll have to be coming back and forth throughout the chat box here to see everything. Let me actually make this pop out. All right, that might make life a little easier to just view everything. Um, yeah. Continuations. Let's just see. Right, continuations. Other trade setups, not really much, right? Because everything is just basically kind of ranging until that FOMC data, right? Um, so we would be seeing price pullback, the overall setups here on the AD USD. If price does clear this candle here, this wick, right? If we do get a bearish candle close to the downside, I would look to see continuations, which is something I think has a lot of potentiality to actually play out, right? And one of the reasons why I look to enter right around this area right here instead of getting in early is because of those pullbacks. Usually, before we do have some major news event, we can expect to see pullbacks made on price, whichever currency pair you are looking at, right? Before that news that does hit, right? So that is something that you have to pay attention to, especially when you try to trade high volatile news, right? High impactful news. So case in example, interest rate, we could see an actual pullback all the way back up here, right? A sort of a dollar weakening before the news does hit, and then you just get a straight spike all the way down. So that is why I believe that if we do clear this area, there's a higher probability to see the price continuation, because that means that bears are in control of the market. That means the more bears, the more sellers compared to buyers, right? There's a bigger ratio of sellers compared to buyers. So therefore, when the news does come out, we should see that sell pressure continue moving downwards, right? So that's why I like to see a strong bearish candle close to the downside for those continuation movements. Um, Looking further, anything else that we do have? You just take a look at the DXY for a minute. I'm just running everything through like the first session, what I was speaking about before I realized that the mic wasn't on. Um, so on the daily time frame, overall on the DXY, we are seeing price gradually head higher, right? Looking overall, we are in a bullish we're seeing a bullish tone overall, right? Again, this is daily time frame. Each candle represents a day for anybody that you're not familiarized with what all of this is. So price did come into the zone, right? We rejected from that area, maintaining the supportive level with the overall trend that we are seeing. Now, if we are looking to see any dollar bullishness or continuations, we'd like to see this overall movement being complete, right? Price continuing upwards. We push past this resistance zone, retest, and then continue moving on. Looking at the 4 hour, what we had, right? We had this strong bearishness coming back down into that zone, and you're seeing a lot of retail traders actually selling the US dollar. But this was because of bonds, right? This was because of the news on the bonds selling, which weakened the US dollar, right? But overall, if we're looking at the more recent time frame away from that level, we see that price gradually continue moving upwards, right? So we gradually continue this overall upward trend. Um, Looking at the 1 hour too, we did form some levels here. Price bullishly rejected from the support area, right? And we gradually coming back down. These are the candles, basically like the move before the actual move, which is like the setup for the interest rate, right? So as you know, the interest rate, we do have a bias that the overall interest rate decision is about to come out bullish, um, right? So around around 2 o'clock, right? 2 p.m. We are looking to see interest rate a consensus of 4%, so an increase of 75 base points, right? So this is the setup before the setup, right? This is basically price just ranging, consolidating before that move. right? And we may see even a further move back down into this zone right here, the supportive zone, and then price just spike even higher. So that is something that we should pay attention to. Um, Looking further on, another thing to pay another thing to pay attention to and pay in focus is the continuation movements for the hold on. And another thing to pay attention to is those continuation movements overall, right? So what I'm looking for in the long term, looking for price to actually set up, is that movement back downwards, right? We feel that basically we come back into this supportive zone, and then as the interest rate decision does come out, we just spike upwards, right? So I'm looking to see that movement basically being reflected on ADUSD as well as NZD/USD, as they give more of a better yield when it comes to the overall price action and the fundamentals between the two, because they oppose each other. So I am looking for a more of a clearer movement between the two cross currency pairs, right? Um, so yeah, instead of like GP USD, Euro USD, or something like that. So that's just to take attention to in that. All right. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back for a moment. Feel something. All right, I'm back. Just had to deal with something real quick, guys. Um, yeah. So continuing moving forward, yeah, these are the setups I'm looking at. If I'm looking to take that US dollar trade. Now, I was talking about NFP, and as we know that NFP, when we do have a higher than expected number or bullish number, right? Um, it's considered bullish, sorry, when we have a higher than expected figure, right? And a lower than expected figure is considered negative or bearish for the US dollar. And if you don't know what NFP is, it's basically, we have the summary right here. It's a monthly employment report produced on the first of every Friday of every month, right? And it have a significant impact on the value of the US dollar, the bond market, and the stock market as well. And it basically encompasses, as you can see here, is a survey of approximately, a large number of businesses, government agencies, which represent approximately 486,000 individual work sites, right? And in order to provide detailed industry data on employment hours and earnings of workers on non-farm payrolls, right? This just means not in the private sector. So with that being said, NFP trading NFP right now kind of a tricky thing to do if you ask me, right? Just because overall we do have the more in focus aspects being inflation as well as interest rate decisions, interest rates being raised and all of that other stuff, right? So with NFP, if you just scroll down here to the expected figures, right, we have NFP, the numbers being 200,000, right? So the consensus is a lot less than the previous, and as we saw before, when we do have a lower than expected figure, it's considered bearish for the dollar, right? But these numbers, I would watch it with heavy scrutiny, right? Just because overall we do have other factors being in play, other factors to pay more attention to. So these numbers would be sort of shrewded, just because we do have a lot of different data points to be looking at. So whether this consensus comes out as true or lesser is who's ever guess. It may even come out more than the expected figure, but it's just like too much risk, just not worth it, right? So I'm not going to look to trade it, just because I don't think it's necessary to actually be trading NFP, especially when you have low volume and just a lot of volatility. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. Other stuff that we do have in focus is unemployment, employment change for the card. So this is something that may also help push that AD card even further down than my profit target for that. as well as RBA statements on monetary policy, right? So this is just like a summary of what the RBA is expecting to do moving forward, increasing interest rates even further, what they're looking at, stuff like that, right? So that is tomorrow. So this is something that we could potentially get a trade out of as well. Seeing more further weakening on the AUD, right? And interest rate decisions as well for tomorrow as well from the BOE, right? So we are expecting to raise rates again by 75 base point increase from the Bank of England. Whether this impacts the pound or not, yes, we should see an impact on the pound, but overall the pound has been very bearish in terms of the fundamentals behind it. So I'm not too keen on taking buy setups or anything like that, just because we have a interest rate decision being being that 75 point increase, right? So I'm not too keen on taking any buys on that, because overall we are getting that strong sell signal, right? So that should set us up for a continuation movement to the downside. Maybe when that news does come out, we see a spike back into these supportive zones, right? These significant zones, turn resistance, and then further move back downwards, because overall the GP is bearish in my opinion. So yeah, I'm just not looking too keen for buy setups just because they have an interest rate increase, right? And these are things that you need to pay attention to and like note for yourself when it comes to trying to trade with fundamental news, right? There's a lot of different factors, so you need to weigh which one outweighs the others, right? Everyone has their pros and cons, but you need to know like which one being more in focus, which one is being more looked at and actually being considered upon, rather than just knowing that okay, interest rate increasing really means that this should be bullish for the currency, so you're looking for that buy setup. But when that buy setup doesn't play out, or you see that price just okay, it wakes up and you're like, right, you're in profit, you're gonna hold the trade for it to move further, and then you see boom, price just totally corrects that and then continues moving downwards as you're looking for possible areas to enter into more buy setups, right? So when price closes here, you're looking, all right, it's probably gonna start rejecting and make this a support and continue back upwards or something like that. And that's not the case, right? So you need to be aware if you're trying to trade fundamentals. You need to be aware of what these news events carry in terms of their weight, as well as what's being more in focus, right? With that interest rate increase from the GP, and this is just like a hot take for you guys to take into consideration when you are trying to implement fundamentals in your trading. With that GBP interest rate, right? Even though we are getting that increase, we do have that bearish sentiment basically settling in, and we also have some other things taken in place, such as you can see right here, right? We have this BOE vote hike, vote cut, and other stuff dealing with the prime ministers of the UK, right? So a lot of different factors playing into the overall strength of the GBP. And just because we do have that interest rate decision, that increase, doesn't necessarily means all of a sudden we're gonna see the GBP just being, a lot more bullish, especially when we compare that to the US dollar, which we're seeing that significant bullishness from, right? So yeah, that's just something that you should pay attention to and note for yourself as well. Right? If anybody have any questions, then feel free to ask, right? As we in this, you know, if you're following along and you're liking the live stream thus far, then feel free to leave a like. It really helps me out with the channel. Let's get the information out there. Let's help other traders, that are probably struggling with their trading, become more successful in their trading career. And that's what I'm all about, really trying to help everybody. All right. So yeah, looking further, really not much. We're just setting up. A lot of consolidation has been happening overall just because we are in low volumes. And something I think a lot of people just fail to realize, especially those new in the trading scene, is that coming for the fourth quarter during November, December month, businesses are closed, right? So there's not a lot of volume in the markets, and which is why, like for myself, why I heavily rely on the fundamentals in some cases, just to be that catalyst for movements, right? So that is just something that I think you should take into consideration as well. Don't overtrade. If you do run into multiple losses, then try to control those losses to the best of your capabilities, but don't revenge trade. Don't look for impulse entries and stuff like that on the higher time frames, dealing like with the 1 hour, the 4 hours, and stuff like that. Just because we are in a low volume situation, right? So markets would be a little bit, they won't be as clear as they would usually be during like summertime, the more bustling when businesses are open and stuff like that, right? Spring, summer, so forth, right? So that is something that you should pay attention to. And what we've been seeing a lot of on a lot of cross pairs is these sort of indecision movements, right? Where price consolidates and basically just sort of range in between areas. So that is just something that you should note for yourself. Now, as we do have that interest rate, that Fed interest rates being the main focus right now, we are seeing some price movements, we are seeing volume, we are seeing the volatility heading into the markets, especially on those US dollar cross pairs. That is something to expect, right? But in terms of like the overall movement, whether that's going to be maintained, such as like how this Euro AED is pulling down, that is something that remains to be seen. Just because we can't really predict whether price is going to continue that, all we know for a fact is that we are in a low volume time, with it being the final quarter of the year. We basically setting up for next year's set of trades, the news and everything. We're just basically setting up for next year, right? So for the first quarter of next year, all of this will be transferred, all of this information will be transferred into that, right? The interest rate decisions, the increase, the overall stance that a lot of these Fed and the monetary policies that we are seeing, all of that will be transferred into next year for the first quarter, right? So we may not get as much news events, but we would have more volume, more continuations, and so forth, right? So that is something that I think you should pay attention to, and you should note for yourself. So don't try to over risk, don't try to over trade, don't try to force a trade out if there isn't any, especially in times of like these right here, right? We're seeing just price working back and forth, a lot of consolidation here, like Eurocat as well. Price just moving in between this range, and some people may try to trade this. Me honestly, I can't do that, right? So I wouldn't even bother. Um, and this is not a big enough range for me, right? This is 20 pips, 20, yeah, around 20 pips, if so much, right? Price just wicking back and forth, just doesn't make sense to me. Um, yeah, looking further, not really much to really discuss, right? I would actually start another live stream during the interest rate decision, just to see like what price does. So what we could expect from price. Again, I'm expecting a continuation movement from price, right? For the first part of the decision itself, when we do have the interest rate come out, usually something that you could see a lot of times, um, especially with inflation being one of the main key factors that everybody's paying attention to. You could see that the from the interest rate decision, when we do have that increase, price spikes to the upside, obviously, as that is the expected movement. This is bullish for price. The Fed is heavily invested in hiking rates and curbing inflation. However, if they do talk about inflation and they talk about maybe inflationary levels still stagnant, not coming down as fast as they once projected, or something like that, all of that could actually play on the US dollar strength, and we could see a correction of that initial bullish move. So if you want to be somebody that's more conservative with your trading, you may want to wait until after the Fed press conference. Wait for what you hear, right, or what you read, whether you're going to decide or read it, or whether you listen to the conference or whatnot. You would want to wait for just to get the overall generalization of, all right, interest rate increase is what the Fed conference is what's said here going to help bolster price, and we're going to see a further continuation with US dollar strength, or is price just going to correct itself from that initial move? And this is actually 30 minutes apart, so yeah, it would be within the same candle that you are looking at, right? Once price does form on this, it would be the same candle they are looking at. So we might get an initial spike to the downside in favor of the US dollar, and then a correction back upwards, right? So that is just something that you should pay note to, um, especially if you're going to trade the interest rate decision. I, you guys know what I'm gonna do, right? So I'm just gonna try to enter right around here once price does clear this level, because then it shows me that the bears are more in control of this, and that continuation seems more likely as we come up to that news event. Um, that and the NZD/USD. I may not get into the NZD/USD, right? Just because I was looking at this level to be the next rejection level and get into a trade right around here. We didn't pull all the way back up into that level like I would have liked. If I wanted to push the envelope, I could have entered here and just have a wider stop loss, but that's just not my trading style, right? Um, I like to keep my stops relatively tight, which is profitable, more profitable. It gives me a higher yield, especially in times like these where we have these events being the decisive factors for those continuation movements, right? Um, yeah, but with that being said, it done moved past, so I wouldn't look to risk it. Um, yeah, this candle is around 15, 16 pips, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna risk it as the candle finishes for me. So yeah, that's basically me right there, right? So those are the trade setups I'm looking at. We are the GBP JPY trade playing out nicely. If you could get that continuation moving down, that would be very, very nice. And if we do see the interest rate actually push price in terms of like the GBP USD price does continue pushing downwards, then the GBP JPY should actually hit our profit target too, as well as GBP CHF should actually hit as well, right? So those are the two trades that I am looking to make the most profit out of today. Um, yeah, so that's basically all that's being watched right now. Um, Anything else like stocks? Looking at NAS on the daily time frame, you can see that it's just ranging back and forth, right? We just have like all of this just range movement, and I'll call this a range just because there's no decisive factor saying that okay, price is pushing will continue upwards, and if we do continue upwards, that'll be based off of like US dollar weakness, um, but you can see we just bouncing in between these two areas, right? This is the low of this area right here. As the interest rate decision does come out, we might get a spike all the way back down into that supportive area, right? You can see price was consolidating before, right? So we are consolidating right now into this area. Let me just change the right. So this is the consolidation area right here. So if we spike to the upside, again, we have that Fed conference to be waiting for to see what actually happens during that time. But on the initial spike, if interest rate decision does come out as expected, then we should see that spike to the downside for the first 30 minutes, right? And maybe the Fed conference might actually help push price back down even more into that supportive level, or we might actually just wick back on that one candle and close either at the opening of the candle or even higher up, right? So again, it's risky to try and trade it right now, especially with we do have some sort of insight on what may be talked about during the Fed press conference. So with that being said, it is riskier to actually hold the trade for the whole 1 hour of that candle formation, right? You might want to try to take a profit within the first 30 minutes. Um, so yeah, that's basically it for me. What I'm looking at and what I'm seeing on the charts right now. As we continue on, again, I would actually start a live stream again during that Fed conference if I'm not occupied doing something else. So we could look forward to that and seeing what price does, what kind of movement we get out of that, right? Yeah, surprises. If we get that bearish close here and we get another candle closing bearish, then yeah, I'm entering this and looking to ride it all the way down. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. We had the CAD CHF. Um, I was talking about this from in the first initial stream as well. Price did come back into the supportive level. Looking at the daily time frame, right? We can see we had multiple rejections from the upside in this, and once we did clear that level, it shows us okay that we have more buyers than sellers right now, and we could see a significant continuation moving upwards. Now, with the actual interest rate coming out, we are seeing that affecting all the other cross currencies because the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, right? When we're talking about reserve currency, everybody, whatever country you're looking at, what's held in their reserve is usually the US dollar. It's the US dollar that is basically the main driver of the economy, right? It's the main focus. So what happens to the US economy impacts, it has a trickle down to all the other economies, all the other cross pairs that we are looking at, right? So that's where we're seeing the volume, that's where we're seeing the price movements, that's where we're seeing the volatility actually pick up from that interest rate decision being the main key, the main focus in everybody's radar, right? Price did come up from this support level, right? We reached into this zone, we rejected once, and we came back, rejected twice with some strong bearish candles. At that point, that basically showed me that, all right, we're not going to get a continuation moving upwards, right? If price comes back into this level and recheck, we're probably going to come back down. If we did get a close above that area, however, then I would have, been keen to take a trade to continue moving upwards. But as you can see, that didn't happen. We just came back into that level. We could maintain this area, however, I'm not going to risk it on taking a trade on this, right? Just because we have that Fed interest rate coming out, it really affecting all the price action on the other cross currencies, right? So it doesn't make sense adding the additional risk to this when you don't know for any certainty. Well, you never know with certainty, but the probability of this actually pushing down is a lot higher than actually seeing price maintain it and pushing back up, right? So yeah, I'm not too keen on taking anything on this right now as it is. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. That's basically it I'm looking at right now. So that's it for the live stream, guys. Hopefully you found this informative. You got some information out of this. Um, yeah, we look to see what the US dollar does during that Fed interest rate increase. Really looking forward to seeing price just rocket to the downside for the US dollar. Really get some gains out of that. But overall, yeah, that's it. That's all that we have thus far going on in the markets. We have the GP, JPY, and the GP CHF trades playing out. If we could get a full play to the downside, then my account will be just triple. No, actually, it will be grown by around 22% on these trades, right? So that's something that I'm looking forward to possibly seeing. Um, so that's it for this, guys. Hopefully you found it informative. Leave a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I'll drop the schedule for the interest rate decision at like around 1:30 p.m. Right, so we'll get into and see what possible trades that we could get into before the interest rate decision does hit. Right, so that's it. Thank you for joining. Peace.